So this is the very last session, and it's going to be a very short one, unless you make it a long one. There's a few things we would like to say to you before we say not goodbye, but på gensyn, which means till we meet again, sometime soon, hopefully. Please take time to fill out the questionnaires. They're very short, but it's valuable to us to know what you think about the conference and to get some input how we best target the recruitment and education of new APLs. And hand it in to Stine or Helene, or if you can't find any of them or can't find the box at the registration desk, give it to me or Morten. We'll take care of it. And the other thing, and more importantly, if you have, can you give this one, benchmarks to submit that helps us measure how well we are doing on development and performance. If you have places in your code where you would like to parallelize, help us make benchmarks for that, examples that we can use and test. So please don't hesitate to contact us with those things. Right. Oh, I have one more small thing. Remember to settle your room bill before you leave. We had a few incidences last year. We couldn't really find out who left them, but so you didn't hear anything from us, but we would rather not repeat that this year. Okay, so I'll hand you over to Morten, who's got a few cautious remarks before you leave.
Well, it's the sand is running out and our energy is perhaps ebbing a bit, so I thought I'd try to find a way to inject some adrenaline into your blood. So I prepared a little list of features we'd like not to see in the product and see if that would make this session maybe last until lunchtime. Now you may recognize this quote. I wasn't really aware of this. It's beautiful. It's from English opera, I think. Is that correct? Operetta, Mikado. And this is I took this off our internal wiki. We now also have started an internal wiki to collect and generate documentation, and we also have some pages where we have what we call WIBNIs. Wouldn't it be nice ifs? It's one of our internal acronyms, and one of the pages is the list of things that we in the development team would like to get rid of. So think about not using some of these features. Well, maybe I could get a show of hands as we go through for each one. How many people are using Quad SM? Well, you don't have to if you don't want to admit it. But if you feel comfortable coming out here. Quad SM, Quad SR. How many people know what it is? Oh, okay. So this is character mode screens. I mean, don't worry, we're not going to throw any of these out in the near future, or at least not until, I ask this question again next year and nobody's hand goes up. Then we'll think about taking them out. But these features actually do cramp our style. For example, with Quad SM, adding Unicode support. Now, should we be adding Unicode support for Quad SM? Other people who are still using character mode I/O on 24x80 terminals going to want Unicode with that? It seems unlikely. So every time we do a new release, we think, Quad SM, Unicode, etc. Quad RBIN, Quad RBOUT. Who's using that? Okay, for what? For terminals or devices? Right, under Windows, and in Jim's case it's, okay. Because certainly under Windows, there are libraries in the operating system now that cover serial I/O much better than our code does, that will hook up to Bluetooth and all sorts of weird devices. You should really look at switching to a higher level of interfacing for that stuff. Quad XT, how many people use Quad XT? Okay, slightly more hands here. So Quad XT is sort of elegant. It's a way to have a variable which is on file, really, a virtual variable, partly outside the workspace. What we're hoping, I guess, is that 64-bit and the availability of more memory is going to make it less important. QuadXT adds serious complexity to the parser and various bits of the interpreter, and it's a bit of a burden. DDE. Okay, for collecting data feeds from Bloomberg and stuff like that. Don't these guys have a COM interface or a .NET interface or something? Yeah. It's still much faster. Okay. I mean, it's one of those things that keeps breaking in unexpected ways when you go to 64-bit and add Unicode and so on. Yeah. TCP socket objects, users, quite a few. Yeah. Think about moving to the new tool, to Conga. I think the people who have tried doing that, you can't. Unidirectional. Yes, you can. No? Can you explain that? So what's the problem here? You have a client. Well, I thought it was carefully designed to allow exactly that. Well, you need more than one thread on the client side, right? But then you could do it? Yeah. Oh, you mean on the same socket? Aha, okay. On the same socket. No, that's correct. So open another socket. You can't open another socket. Okay, so maybe, what's that? Callbacks. Okay, if you're using it in command mode, there's a progress report. It's possible for the server to send messages back while the client's waiting for a response. Have you seen that? Okay. Okay, but I mean that's fine. Maybe we need to do work on some features in order to enable you to move away. I think most people would, have looked at this who said it's basically a question of deleting a bunch of lines of code to move from using TCP sockets to Conga. The underscored alphabet. How many people are willing to admit to? Okay. Is it a big problem to translate those? I know we've had several people in the last year who've just sort of done a systematic replace and managed to get the code still working. I guess if you're using source code management and you want to diff things and so on, I guess you take a pretty bad hit when you do that, right? Has anybody done that within an environment where they're using source code management and found an elegant solution for that? Lars? No? Well, if you're using source code management, like Subversion, and you like diffing files, if you one day replace all the underscores by something else, then the next day when you diff your code, it's going to look quite horrible. Yeah, so we need a diff tool that's going to recognize that Yeah, no, I mean, that's a problem. So, you know, the earlier you do it, the better. The more of your changes will be on this side of the flood. I had... Yeah, I mean, yes, I mean, many people may not know this if you weren't in the Unicode workshop. Underscored characters are not in Unicode, right? So underscoring is like italic and bold. It's seen as a form of emphasis. So therefore, underscored A did not deserve a special position in Unicode. And you can see the logic of that. Delta underscore did make it because it's a special APL symbol. Yes. Yeah. No, well, nor is delta, I suppose. It is. No, in Unicode, in your youth. Yes. Oh, no, it is in APL, it is. But I would be very surprised if in Unicode it was. So you're saying in the Unicode, in Unicode there's a definition, or there's a list of or flag for a character, whether it's allowed in the name of in a programming language, whether a programming language should allow it to be used in a name, or is it at some other level? Joachim. Yeah. No, but so I mean, I've certainly seen on web pages, you go to web pages which describe a Unicode character, there are these flags that say, can you use it in a name? Is that part of the Unicode standard, or is that Microsoft or somebody else who's... That's in the Unicode standard. Oh, right. I mean, APL obviously doesn't adhere to those flags, but as we go forward, I think it's going to be more and more important that APL programs will interoperate with programs written in other languages. So if you make a method and call it delta underscore method 1, a C# programmer will not be able to call it because his Visual Studio will say, well, that's not a name. He'll get some kind of, he won't be able to compile his C# program to call your function. This could be a feature. It's super private methods. Yeah. Okay. But I mean, again, these things will not go away. We found a solution. Adrian formats the circled alphabet, which, I mean, why circled alphabetics are in Unicode and underscored alphabetics are not is one of those questions that we will never really understand. But what we decided to do was that in the Unicode edition, anything that was an underscore maps to the circled alphabetic part of Unicode, and then the APL 385 Unicode font formats those as underscores. But if you switch to a standard Microsoft font, then the underscores will all switch into letters with circles around them. Now, Unicode does not define how the glyphs shall be displayed. It has nothing. It links a number to a name. Yes. Yeah. No, I seriously don't agree with that. We are not in the business of forcing people to rewrite their code from one release to the next. We try and avoid that. This is really just to let you know that the longer you continue to use these features, the slower, we walk more and more slowly as we develop the product, because we have to keep taking steps to make sure that this old stuff still works. And with every release of new operating systems, some of these things get harder and harder and harder. I suppose DDE isn't going to go away. I mean, if Bloomberg and Reuters base their, well, unless the stock market, well, it might, it's half disappeared. Okay. Well, that does mean, that's good. I mean, that's sort of good news. That means it will go away because eventually people will move forward. Yeah. And I mean, okay, 32-bit files. Well, from version 12 you can ask with quad F props, a new function. You can. Yeah, but when you say you're using them, it's not that you have a. But I mean, if your files turned into 64-bit files, that wouldn't make any difference. I mean, there shouldn't be any difference between them. You just have some. I don't know the answer to that. Who can answer that? Where's John? No, the Skulls. 64-bit files on WinCE. There. Yeah. Yeah. And the no, I think it would. Yeah. Yeah.
So you are making a 64-bit operating system calls, which are translated by the operating system down to the file system that is matched to. So if you are sitting on XP and running a that file system, then they'll all be cut down to 32-bit and that state. You haven't got the 64-bit on the that file system. If you've got 64-bit on the RSFS file system, or on the RS2 file system, all of that is there.
So you're saying if people are okay, so people running FAT. So if you're running Windows and you've still got FAT files, you can't you can't get the files to. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it would depend simply on what the PDA's operating system supports, and I don't know the answer to that. It would be very strange if it didn't. The PDA is also, has been a Unicode-based platform right from the start, and until version 12 we've been doing work to sort of translate everything to Unicode on the PDAs. So from version 12, for the PDA version 12, which is targeting the Christmas shopping season, there will only be a Unicode version. There will be no classic version for the PDA, because that would be a silly thing to do. And the decision to change to 64-bit being the default, the timing of that our thinking goes, well, now that version 10.1 is with the release of version 12, 10.1 becomes the earliest supported version, officially supported version of Dyalog APL. So 10.1, 11, and 12. 10.1 is the first version which supports 64-bit files. So therefore, now that all supported versions can handle 64-bit files, therefore the default can now safely be changed to 64-bit. So we were taking care that, you know, we don't make this kind of change in a way that will cause trouble for people, though we do have a problem with 10.1 and 64-bit files that I think will be fixed next week. Currently, version 10.1 can only use 64-bit files that it created itself. It has a problem with newer 64-bit files. Okay. And of course, the big one, the most recent one. How many people are using the classic interpreter? Everybody. Almost everybody. The classic, the non-Unicode interpreter. Yeah. So, yeah. Well, it's version 12 classic, or any version earlier than 12 would be considered a classic interpreter now. You know, like with Coke. Eventually, everything is going to be 64-bit Unicode, right? Some number of years from now, you will all be using 64-bit and Unicode, and then there'll be 128-bit, I suppose. But oh, no, I'm not saying you could make this change now, right? I'm just saying we will end up here. That's where the world is going. Like 16-bit operating systems lasted, for a decade longer than the geeks thought when 32-bit operating systems came out. The same will be true. Well, is already true, right? Vist on the Microsoft platform, 64-bit's been around for what, a decade? It's been around. Yeah, there was what, the Itanium. I mean, no, but there have been 64-bit versions of Windows for certainly more than 5 years, and their market penetration is still single-digit, if at best. No, the Linux world is completely different. There's lots of 64-bit. Yeah. But the numbers on Windows have gone from, nothing into, I think now, maybe single digit. Right, but it's changing. Even on Windows, 64-bit is certainly on servers and starting to come in on workstations. Yeah. 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 So this is a long-term one. I mean, both in terms of the Unicode and the 64-bit, but yeah. No. No, actually there is a connection there. So far we've decided that 32-bit files will not accept Unicode data. You need 64-bit component files to put Unicode into them. And there are two reasons for that. One is it's our way of sort of pushing. The other is your safety. We decided that would help, for people who have been using old applications with 32-bit files. It would prevent the accidental writing of Unicode data into those files. So that, if you then fired up your version 9, it would fall flat on its face when it received Unicode character data. No. No, just the files, the component files, yeah? And only if you write data which is not in Quad AV. Now, you really need to be in the Unicode workshop for that. The Unicode interpreter can update 32-bit files if all of the character data which you're writing to the file would be representable in a version 11 or 10 system. So if all the characters are characters in the current Quad AV, oh, no, it's fine, runs everywhere, yeah. If it turns out to be a huge problem for people that we don't write Unicode data to 32-bit files, that's something we'll reconsider. But at the moment, it makes good sense to sort of draw a line in the sand there, both for us and I think for very many customers. There are no drawbacks to using 64-bit files that I'm aware of. They're not slower, or they're very, very slightly bigger, I suppose, because the pointers are 64-bit pointers. But that's minimal. Okay, so, oh yes, this is not a clever Viagra. Well, maybe before clever subject line for a Viagra ad. So there are a couple more presentations that have come in. Actually, before I go there, maybe I should open to just a couple of things to say, practical things at the end here. But maybe we've got 10 minutes now. Is that what we have? For you to, having now been provoked, say what you'd like to see or not have us take out. Phil. Yes. But nobody has anything to suggest to us. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Things like deleting bits of the session. Not automatically reformatting people's code. Yeah. How many people feel that's an issue with? Okay. Yeah. Okay, I'm not sure that style. Yeah. 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 I mean, I'm not sure that I'm not sure that supporting people who write applications which rely on the behavior of quad trap is at the top of our list. We should almost make that as erratic as possible. Yeah. I mean, there are good reasons for maintaining it. The main reason for not doing that is that it would sort of double the amount of space we need to use in the workspace, because we need to keep the tokenized form and the source form. But then there are big benefits if we did some more work in that we could start pre-compiling bits. If we didn't have to be able to find our way back from the tokenized form to the source form. Yeah. So, we have this discussion frequently in the development group, and eventually, well, as John said when you asked him, I think we're still discussing it. Yeah. Joachim? Yeah. Yeah. And what about the idea of just using the .NET classes for that? and mono.
But I think if there was sort of a, it could be a separate library, that's fine. It definitely doesn't have a built-in language. And maybe we can build it ourselves for like more than a year, and that's fine. But it's really, that's sort of something you occasionally need to do at a lower level. But most of the time, it's compared to
Yeah. And you don't think we could sort of cover that by adding functionality to Conga?
No, sure.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that's sort of something.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, it's not going away in a hurry. Steve? Ah, yes. Okay. Yes. Let me explain. If you have a language, okay, I think the cause, most often the cause is the following, that if you have multiple keyboards on your machine, you'll have a keyboard, what is it called, the language bar. Not our language bar, the Windows language bar. It can be minimized, in which case it's just this little thing down here. Or you can, I have it restored because I was doing Unicode demo. If you right-click on it wherever it is and go to Settings, Advanced Key Settings, there's a bunch of hotkeys for switching between the languages. And you'll see I've disabled every single one of those. Not completely. Okay. You think? Okay. So this is the frequent problem, and then there's apparently another problem as well.
I think by default, Windows changes the entire keyboard with the address like before, and also the way that it's actually open down. Control and what? I think control and all. But I think that it should also decide.
Yeah. It's a real problem for people who also have APL Plus on their machine, because their keyboarding habits make them hit this combination all the time. Yeah. And Eclipse. Okay. Okay. Richard. Yeah. No, I mean most of a lot of Western Europe has been using the Alt font. I mean there are many definitions of Quad AV. Quad AV doesn't have a definition as such. In the past, it was just which font were you using, and Russians designed their own fonts and filled them up with Cyrillic, and instead of underscores, they had Russian letters. When you convert to Unicode, in the Unicode interpreter, you can tell it how you want to view old character data that's coming in from classic systems. And there's a variable that you in fact can localize, and it has namespace. You can have different one in different. No, you can't localize it, but it has namespace scope. So you can copy data in using the Alt font, or functions written in Denmark by somebody using Alt. You can then change the mapping and read some underscored code in to the same workspace. You can then copy some Russian stuff into the same workspace, and it will all be display as it was, because Unicode can now accommodate all of those characters. But yeah. Yeah. That's just your demo. It's your demos, isn't it?
Yeah, it's mostly demos.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that. If you've used,
Yeah.
for example, time graphic quotes, so here is something you quote in time. You can't load that chart on the back. Because those quotes are punctuation patterns like that, and they're not quite big.
Okay.
So it's a pain. I would love to.
Yeah. Well, I think it's going to be some years, to be honest. Kimmo, you one final question.
Yes, I had a hope to be able to provide my software as single access instead of bundles.
Yeah. We're aware of that. So that you could bundle, all the DLLs and your workspace into a single executable file and just ship that to people. Yeah. Okay, so time is up. We're back in. Ended up in the wrong place here. So update your stick. See Jason on the way out if you want to pick up. This is particularly important if you want to pick up the conference edition. Nick fixed the bug where you can't use the APL monitor with the conference edition. So you can pick that up from Jason. Because we're not going to be posting that on the web page. The presentations, there's still some we haven't received. We'll be putting those up. And if you haven't yet got a copy of the Ken Iverson Memorial Edition of Vector, there's a free copy, stack of free copies up here that you can pick up. And we will see, hopefully, most of you next year, or many of you in the USA. We're targeting somewhere on the East Coast, but there's a question about that in the questionnaire, about where you'd like to go, and it's not just where you would like to go, but where your boss will actually send you. And the year after that, Berlin, probably in August. That's not set in concrete, and then back to North America in 2011. See you there, and thank you very much for coming.